Hey y'all, welcome back to the channel. Today I want to talk about a character from Bleach who's always stood out to me, Baraggan Louisenbairn, the second Espada. He's actually my favorite villain in the series, and not just because of how strong he is, but because of his design, his presence, and honestly, the weight that comes with his title as the King of Hueco Mundo. There's something about the way he carries himself that always stuck with me. Now before we get into it, let me know in the comments, who's your favorite Espada? And do you think Baraggan deserved the number 2 spot, or should have been the number 1 spot? Me personally, I think he should have been number 1, but that's a video for a different day. So let's start with who Baraggan is. In Aizen's Army of Espada, he's ranked number 2, which already tells you he's incredibly powerful. But what makes him more interesting is that before Aizen ever showed up, Baraggan was actually the ruler of Hueco Mundo. He was the king. That was it, the de facto ruler. Now, when Aizen came through and basically took over, Baraggan didn't just fall in line because he was weaker. He fell in line because he didn't have a choice. And you can tell he never really respected Aizen, and honestly, if I was leading Hueco Mundo and Aizen pulled up, I probably wouldn't respect him either. And you already know the time that Aizen's on. Aizen's going to basically force you into submission. That being said, the reason why he ended up following him was more out of necessity rather than loyalty. When we see him in the anime during the fake Karakura town arc, Baraggan is the one that's taking charge while Aizen, Gin, and Tozen are sealed behind the firewall that Yamamoto built up. He steps into that leadership role naturally, and the other Espada don't question it, which is really interesting, and I feel like Kubo kind of set us up to believe that he was the number 1, especially considering how Haribel didn't really question it and Stark was perfectly fine with it. So, and his age made me think that he was kind of like Yamamoto's counterpart, which in actuality, because he is the King of Hueco Mundo and Yamamoto is the head captain of the Gotei 13, they technically are counterparts of their respective factions. Just wanted to point that out. Now, getting back to the other Espada not really questioning Baraggan, that moment always made me wonder how different things would have gone if Baraggan had actually stayed in power. Do y'all think Hueco Mundo would have been a better off place under him or than Aizen? And actually, I can kind of answer my thoughts on that. The answer is no. I feel like Aizen, as bad as he is, he did actually bring order to Hueco Mundo, and in later seasons, like further on, Haribel and Nell actually picked up where he left off and maintained that order. So I do say Aizen, as bad as he did bring some order to Hueco Mundo. And I'm just going to say it, like I said earlier, I've always thought that Baraggan should have been ranked the first Espada instead of Stark. I get that the steroid levels are a factor as well as their spiritual pressure, but the man literally represents death. His power, his history, and the fact that even the other Espada fall in line under him, it just feels like he had more weight as an authoritarian figure versus Stark. Baraggan's role in the story really shines during the Karakura town battle. He faces off against Soifon and Hachi, which is a tough combo and very interesting one too at that. You've got speed and tactics coming at him from both sides, but he never really looks pressed. Honestly, he didn't really seem like he was backed into a corner until the very tail end of the fight. He moves very slow, but he takes his time, and he actually controls the pace of the fight for the majority of the fight. And honestly, I think that says a lot about his confidence in battle. Like when Soifon uses her Bankai, again, this is a giant shoulder-mounted missile nuke, and Baraggan just tanks it. He doesn't just tank it once, he tanks it twice technically. It doesn't take him down, nor does it just seems like it makes him like a little annoyed at the end of the day, but he's not too pressed by it. Real quick though, how do y'all feel about that moment? Should a Bankai be that ineffective? No shade to Soifon. Or does it show how OP Baraggan really was? And a little bit more about that, because his ability ties into why her Bankai was a little ineffective. Speaking of his powers, let's talk about what makes Baraggan so dangerous. When he releases his Zanpakuto, Arrogante, he transforms into the skeletal Reaper-looking version of himself. It's one of the most intimidating resurrection forms in the series. In my opinion, he literally becomes the embodiment of death. Does he not look like the Grim Reaper? Like, for real, no, not to be like too funny, but he just reminds me of like the Grim Reaper from Family Guy. Like the cloak, the skeleton face, like, I mean, obviously the Grim Reaper is just skin and bones, but still, I just thought it was interesting considering they're hollows. But getting back to the transformation scene, this is probably one of the coolest sequences, just the eerie smoke, the music, everything, and then the fact that his resurrection name is like Arrogante, like Spanish for arrogant. Chef's kiss. The way that his flesh just like decays off his skin and he steps out as a full skeleton king, like, come on, they really went all out with this design and it was so badass. I don't mean like badass like it's like Grimjow's Resurrection was like cool badass. Like his is more badass because it was terrifying, just pure death energy, if that makes sense. Touching base on his power that I feel like staved off Soifon's Bankai, his main power is Respira. This lets him release this black mist, almost like a miasma. If you watch Inuyasha, it reminds me of that type of like aura, misty. It's just very dark and aura-y. But basically it rapidly ages and decays anything it touches. And I'm not just talking about weapons or energy, it breaks down buildings, people, and even other spiritual attacks. It's like really OP. I'm talking keto. Anything, basically, if you're subjected to time, it'll affect you. Soifon literally loses an arm to it, and Hachi's barriers just crumble. Now he did put up some really good barriers that took a minute to crumble, but they did eventually crumble, which really makes me think like, dang, like how powerful are those keto spells for them to last so long, you know, hundreds, thousands of years. This ability is straight up, in my opinion, broken, but in a way that makes sense for his character. He's not about the flash, he's more about the inevitability. Basically, again, if you are subjected to time, you will die. That power represents time and decay. No matter how fast you are or how strong you are, if you can't avoid the mist, you're done. And in essence, if you can't avoid time, it'll eventually catch up to you. It might take a minute. Side note, I've always thought that if Baraggan represents time and aging, how old is he really? Like for real, because Captain Yamamoto is over 1,000 years old, right? And like I said earlier, I feel like Baraggan and Yamamoto parallel each other. The Bleach anime doesn't give us an exact answer, but based on some lore and the way that other hollows react around him, there's a rumor that his skeletal form is unique, even among the Vassal Lorde. And I believe in some of the light novels, they touch base on this too, because I believe the first hollow, something like that. It's just, it might be tied to it. You guys let me know in the comments. I have not had the chance to read the novels like in their entirety. But I'm thinking that he must have existed for hundreds of thousands of years prior to the start of the series. I'm talking maybe even the same era as maybe Ichibei before like the Great Sin. You know what I'm saying? Like maybe he's like part of that era. But anyways, that kind of longevity just adds more depth to his whole, like, again, vibe, and that essence of him being the King of Hueco Mundo. Now, getting back to the story, or getting back to his role in the story, eventually Hachi figures out how to seal his Respira inside of Baraggan, which it causes his own body to rot from the inside. And honestly, again, like I just feel like his ability is OP. It kind of like disintegrates him, which is funny because the captain that he was fighting, Soifon, her Suzume Bachi, once they hit you twice, it also disintegrates you. So I'm like, I'm not saying they have similar abilities, but they do kind of have dominion over death in some areas. I might be giving Soifon a little too much here, but that's my girl. Like this is a Soifon stan account. But yes, that's how he dies. But it's not because of someone is stronger. It's literally because of his own ability killed him, because Hachi outsmarted him. And you would think with all that years of wisdom and experience, he would have, I don't know, known better, or just have been a little bit more prepared for antics like that in battle. Now, do y'all think there was any other way to beat Baraggan outside of how Hachi took him out? Or was that the only shot that they had? Let's talk about strategy in the comments. Like, for real, like how would you guys have theoretically figured out how to get around his Respira ability? Because again, it's super OP. What would your plan be? I want to know what your plan would be, and I also want to know if you were up against him, who would you have had to help tag team? Would you still would have chosen Hachi? Me personally, Hachi all day, every day, unless what is the guy that hangs out with Urahara? I forgot his name, but he used to be the keto captain, I think, prior. I forgot his name though. Y'all let me know what his name is in the comments as well. Moving on. So we wrapped up his role in the story, and I just kind of want to hunker down on the reason why Baraggan is my favorite villain in Bleach. His design is immaculate. Everything about how he looks, from the crown to the fur cloak to his skeletal final form, it just screams authority and fear. he looks like a king, the King of Hueco Mundo. And you feel that when he's on screen. He just has that presence about him. And again, to compare him to Stark, you could have, I would have paid money if I could have bet who was number one. It would have been Baraggan. Secondly, the title. Being called the King of Hueco Mundo just gives him the sense of importance that most of the other Espada don't have. Like, he's kind of like, I don't know if it's like a hierarchy, or it's not political, because obviously he's not like the president of Hueco Mundo, but I would imagine because in Hueco Mundo power matters, he would be the de facto strongest person in Hueco Mundo, if that makes sense. And in my opinion, he's not trying to climb the ranks to prove himself. He's already been there. He's been at the top. And even when Aizen shows up, you can tell Baraggan never stopped seeing himself as the real ruler. You know what I mean? And if y'all want my honest opinion, I really think Aizen made him number 2 to spite him. I've seen that on like other videos. I've seen that in Reddit. There's like this theory going on, like Baraggan should have been number 1, but Aizen's very petty and spiteful and just, you know, a manipulative genius, that he did that just to get under Baraggan's skin. That's my headcanon. Don't shoot the messenger. Lastly, again, that ability of his, he literally uses aging and decay as a weapon. That's not, it's not just strong, like it's literally like unsettling. Like how do you beat that? It's slow, it's painful, and it reminds you that time comes for everybody. It's literally like I don't know the phrase, but when they're like he knows who the bell tolls, or whatever the Grim Reaper says, like it just gives that kind of vibe. And again, I just feel like Baraggan is like the symbol of death itself in the Bleach universe. Is there a villain in Bleach who hits a little bit harder to you just because of their concept or backstory? Drop your favorites down below. I want to see who y'all connect with and why. Like I said, Baraggan is my guy. I'll even give Tsukishima a little bit of his credit, because I do think Book of the End is pretty cool. So yeah, that's Baraggan Louisenbairn, one of the most intimidating Espada, the former King of Hueco Mundo, and a character who honestly deserved more screen time in my opinion. If you enjoyed the breakdown, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that bell so you don't miss out on any future uploads. And let's keep the conversation going, y'all. Who's your favorite Espada? I know I've asked this already, but drop it in the comments. And if you're playing Bleach Rebirth of Souls, I'm on there too, PS5. Currently, I main Haribel from the Espada faction. I have other favorites, but out of the Espada, I am maining Haribel, and I wish and pray that we do get Baraggan as a DLC. I know you can fight against him in the game, so there's a model for it. Again, conversations for a different time. But yes, do you agree that Baraggan might have actually been the number 1? Even if the ranking said otherwise? Thanks for watching. This is